Hi, everyone. Welcome to Explaining the Unexplainable. And boy, do we have a wonderful guest tonight that is here to do just that. And he has got a wide variety of things that he has researched, talked about, written about. He has pretty much everything we need for explaining the unexplainable. So, with that said, I'm going to turn it over to my co host, Joshua Bishop Exorcist Joshua Sparks, and say hi to him first. So, hold on there, John Carpenter. Hold on. Okay, Joshua.
All
Hi.
right.
You battled a tornado to be here.
Yeah, we had storms all around us. Our little city didn't get hit, but just northeast of us, over in West Virginia, they got hit, and they hit all around us. And there's still severe thunderstorms going through the area, but that's okay. We're safe. We're protected. It's nice. It's cooled things down. It's not miserable outside anymore. So that's good for a fat guy like me. Um, but there are nights much like tonight, when the veil between the known and the unknown feels thin, when testimonies echo with patterns too precise to dismiss, and when the phenomena we call unexplained begins to look more like data waiting to be interpreted. Tonight is one of those nights. On explaining the unexplainable, we don't chase shadows, we interrogate them. We don't romanticize the mysterious, we analyze it. And we don't fear the strange, we invite it to speak. And tonight we welcome a man who has spent decades listening to those voices from the edge of human experience. We have John Carpenter, MUFON director, seasoned investigator, and one of the most meticulous researchers in the field of UFO encounters, abduction phenomena, and anomalous case studies. He has sifted through thousands of reports, separating noise from signal, testimony from truth, and speculation from patterns that demand serious attention. John doesn't collect stories, he dissects them. He doesn't just follow leads, he builds frameworks. And he doesn't just ask questions, he asks the right questions. So, John, tonight we want to walk with you into the territory where psychology, spirituality, and the unexplained intersect. And we want to understand what you learn from the people who have seen what most of us never will. So, John Carpenter, welcome tonight to Explaining the Unexplainable.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
It's
And
great to
thank you because we need several days to go through this.
have you. Well,
The
that
one
means
thing I
we,
learned, and I heard early on from other researchers, the more you dig into it, the more questions you end up with.
and
and
that is true.
I think that's very true. But,
You, that
you
means
know,
we
I,
just have to have you come back more and more and more and more and more.
yes, but the questions that we can answer are fascinating. And in my whole field of psychology that I was trained in, uh, there were just things that sometimes went beyond the boundaries when people would report near death experiences or some kind of spiritual contact that they couldn't explain. And of course, they would tell me because they were afraid they were crazy. And I get all the good stories that way. so,
Absolutely.
but I would reassure them that no, that's not unusual. People have reported those things. For example, I had a lady who wondered if her son, who just died, he was in his 30s and she's in her 50s, she wondered if he might contact her in some way. And I said, well, just pay attention. If anything odd happens or unusual, don't just write it off. Just, let's talk about it. 3 months later, she came back in. She goes, something weird's happening. I go, what? She goes, the smoke alarms in my house are all going off. But when I look at them, they stop. When I leave the room, they start up again. And so her husband checked all the wiring and batteries and everything was fine. She goes, do you think my son's making contact? And I said, well, look, why don't you look at the smoke alarms when they're going off and say, son, if that's you, you can stop now. So she went home, they were going off. She looked at them and she said, son, if that's you, you can stop now. They stopped right then and have never done it since.
Well,
Wow.
that's a really interesting thing that, and I believe the veil's so thin from this world to that world that sometimes they cross. You know,
Oh, yeah.
um, in my world that happens a lot. Even evil spirits, demonic spirits are they exist outside of time and space, but they exist inside of time and space too because well they keep me busy. So, uh, but I'm fascinated to have you on tonight because I too have experienced many, many encounters with UFOs. I've never reported it, but I've got videos, pictures. My wife and I have stood out and watched them fly through the sky. My father and I, we have watched them numerous times. Um, he's seen one. He had a daylight encounter where he said he saw the light that we usually see, and then when that craft turned sideways, it looked like something you'd see off Star Wars. And this is a man that never believed in anything like that.
Oh yeah.
Of course, we all love Star Trek and
Right.
Star Wars, and we've all seen all the movies. But when you actually see something for real that's there and that you can't deny, I mean, first we try to say, well, maybe it's a balloon, maybe it's an airplane, maybe it's a drone. Well, when something looks like a ball of fire pulsating in the sky, or you see wheels turning in the middle of wheels as it flies across the sky in strange patterns, there's no way that that's just some kind of a military vehicle or a balloon or some
Right.
kind of an airplane. There's things we can't explain, and I wanted to ask you this before we dive deep, into this discussion tonight, because I know you've got so many things you want to share with us. Because, you know, not every day do you get the chance to pick somebody like John Carpenter's brain, and this is a true honor to have you on here. So, can you kind of
Thank you.
take us back to the beginning, like what, excuse me, what first compelled you to investigate UFO encounters and anomalous experiences?
Well, it's my brother's fault. He brought home a book, a paperback, when I was in third grade about flying saucers, and it was written by one of the famous people at that time, uh, uh, Donald Menzel, maybe. I'm not sure. I can't remember the exact name, but anyway. And I was reading through it, and of course, there were words in there I didn't understand, like pulsate and hover and all that, because I'm in third grade, But I was
Yeah.
so determined to read it because they were treating it like police reports and newspaper accounts, and I was like going,
Hmm.
"This stuff sounds real," you know. And so I at the same time I was reading poltergeist stories out of Reader's Digest, and collecting those stories too. So I was just fascinated by anything that was supernatural or unusual. And heck, I still have the Look magazine from 1962 with Betty and Barney Hill's story in it. I,
Oh yeah.
I lived through Travis Walton's 1973 encounter, and I was in high school, and I've met him, and I've actually met Betty too.
Hmm.
Um, uh, so, it's just, and I was telling Mercedes before we went on the air that in high school I wrote my term paper on UFO research, and nobody knew about that stuff. And I was citing really great examples of stuff and citing the footnotes and everything, doing it like I was supposed to. My teacher was so impressed. She goes, "You get an A plus, and I'm filing that paper as an example for others to learn from."
Wow.
So I
Wonderful.
didn't know. I was just doing what I thought was a good job of reporting the facts. And back then, it's like people didn't even know about that stuff. There was nothing on TV. You were lucky if Unsolved Mysteries had one show a year on UFOs. It just was very rare. Now you can find it on every channel practically on cable. You can find some UFO special. Um, so how I got involved is my field is psychology, and I learned hypnosis in 1980. And by mid 80s, you have Bud Hopkins and Whitley Strieber coming out with their books, Missing Time and Communion. And I thought, oh my gosh, I love UFO stuff. I learned hypnosis, and now they're using that with alien abductees. Maybe I could volunteer. Nah, another year went by. But then I decided, okay, I'm going to write the sources in the back of Bud Hopkins' book. One was MUFON, one was CUFOS, the Center for UFO Studies in Chicago, and the other was Bud Hopkins himself. And so I wrote all three. And within 2 days, MUFON, Walt Andrus, called me and says, "We're signing you up as a research specialist and state section director for 4 counties in your area." I thought,
Wow.
oh, cool. And I thought, what do I do?
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, in 2 days, he signed me up. And then 2 months later, Bud Hopkins calls me at home. And I was just blown away. Here's this famous author of UFO stuff calling me at home. And we talked for an hour about UFO research and hypnotic techniques and paradoxical questioning and all sorts of things that he does. And he was teaching me what he likes to do and how he does it. And he referred me my first case nearby in Independence, Missouri, which turned out to be very interesting because he couldn't go and do everything. So he was glad I was out there where I could help. Um, in fact, it's kind of funny about this time. A man named John Mack wrote me a letter and says, I'm interested in getting into abduction research. What can you tell me about it? That's Dr. John Mack writing me, asking me questions.
You know, it's like you have been, I mean, like seriously, your repertoire is up there with the high up people and all this. But you said, like you told us before the show, you've kind of been just, going your path. But now it's really time for you to get your all the stuff you have out there again
Well,
and
this is
share.
why I had started to write a book, probably 20 some years ago, you know, doing summaries of cases and stuff. But after I've written these other books that we haven't talked about yet, I realized that 200 written pages ends up, or 200 typed pages ends up being 400 some printed. And I thought, whoa, I can't. I can't do this. It's going to be. I wasn't even halfway through my book idea, and I already was going to be writing something huge. So, and some of the people involved were afraid of personal information getting out, and so I just kind of put it on hold. And but recently I've been watching stuff on TV, and I go, they're all excited about this case, this UFO case, and this abduction thing, and I thought, I've got stuff that would blow them away, and I kept thinking about it. And I thought, why aren't I doing something with all that? I mean, I'm getting up there in age, and all this will be lost if I don't do something with it.
Mhm.
So I decided, maybe I ought to put all that best of the best research that I've done in a book. And
Yay.
yeah, and I have a little outline here if you'd like to hear some of the tidbits that are going in.
Yes.
Uh, First of all, I kind of specialized in multiple participant cases. In other words, two or more people being abducted at once. And I have three famous ones I'm going to put in the book. One of them, which was also not only front cover of the MUFON Journal, but it was also on the front cover of USA Today's Sunday edition. It was on the front cover of that when that used to come out on Sundays.
Wow,
USA Today.
that was a
Yeah.
big, I remember when that was like a big deal. The
Yeah,
USA is Sunday edition.
that was my case. It was pictured on the front. And basically, just real short, these two women were coming back from a workshop in Colorado, and they lived in St. Louis. And it was about an hour from um, a place in Colorado to Goodland, Kansas, where they're going to stay for the night. Well, just before they got to their destination, they saw this strange light, and it was kind of following their car and then coming down closer. And then it was like hovering over a field, and they remember pulling over. The next thing they remember is pulling out, and now one's got a nosebleed and the other one's really irritable. And they get to their motel, and the guy says, "Boy, you girls are out late." And they go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "It's like 1 o'clock in the morning." And they go, "No, it can't have taken 3 hours. It was only a 1 hour drive." Well, they had 2 hours of missing time. So, make a long story short, I was able to hypnotize one of them within a week after it happened, and the other one a couple weeks later, without them knowing what either one had come up with. And to make a long story short, they had both been floated up into the craft. One was examined on a table and something was implanted up her nose, while the other one stood by, panicked and watching. Well, one reported seeing the other on the table, and the other one was remembered being on the table, seeing the other one panic. So they had 43 matching specific details between their two independent encounters. And that was huge. That was then published in the Center for UFO Studies research journal that they put out, and front cover of MUFON journal. And they called it Another Interrupted Journey, like Betty and Barney Hill, but this was another interrupted journey.
Wow.
So that was one. There'll be a chapter on that. Then there was another one, which was interesting because I was dealing with this lady who remembered bits and pieces of a craft coming down and seeing creatures. And she had had a friend with her, a male friend with her, and they had never talked about it. They didn't know what happened. They had all sorts of awkward feelings about it all, but they just didn't deal with it for like 15, 20 years. And so she came to me and we did hypnosis, and she remembered all these details and drew drawings. And then he, I believe, was out with David Jacobs in Pennsylvania at Temple University. And so I had him go to David Jacobs, but David and I did not talk about the case at all. He went and had his hypnosis done, and he came up with all the same details that she had here almost 20 years later, and drew pictures that matched hers. And it's a great case because you got two different witnesses 20 years later with
Wow.
two different hypnotists 1,000 miles apart, and you still have matching stories. So,
Wow.
and then I have another one, multiple participants, which is a really famous one with Linda Howe. If you remember in her Emmy Award-winning Strange Harvest documentary, she had at the very end this woman named Judy Doherty, who had been taken aboard a craft and was panicked because she'd seen a calf mutilated and cut up on board. And then she saw her daughter laying on a table and was so afraid they were going to mutilate her next. So she's screaming, "That's my daughter, oh my God." And then but that hypnosis was done with Dr. Leo Sprinkle in Colorado. A good 10 to 15 years later, her daughter, Cindy, is living within an hour of me. And Linda Howe gets hold of me and she goes, "See if Cindy will be willing to see what she remembers from that night," because she thought her mom was crazy. She didn't know any of the details, and she just, you know, didn't care about any of it. But I talked to her, and she agreed to see what would happen. And Linda brought her TV crew, everything, and we set it all up.
Wow.
And what seemed like what was a 3-hour hypnosis session, Cindy thought was only 15 minutes long. She went completely out. She remembered all the details of the calf being lifted up in the air and then both of them being taken on board. She remembers seeing the calf mutilated just like her mother did. And then she remembers laying on a table and seeing her mom screaming, "Oh my God, they're going to cut up my daughter," and just matched everything perfectly. And Linda Howe, of course, was just thrilled. And the funder of this project was Robert Bigelow. He was there. So,
Oh my gosh.
oh yeah, I know quite a few interesting people. And that was actually then presented in her pilot show of the famous show Sightings that was on for many years in the 90s. And in her pilot show, she did that review of that case. But I thought I need to write that up too, because there's so much detail in there that was just so amazing. And Cindy, the whole time, you know what she said afterwards when she came out of the trance? "Did anything make any sense?" She had no idea that if anything matched what her mother had said or anything. And it was a perfect match all the way around. It was one of those just awesome moments. The hypnosis worked so well.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah. Now, I want to add something real quick. So a lot of people might say, oh, yeah, hypnosis, you're suggesting the answers to her. That's why she said the same thing. Oh, no. I'm notorious for pushing for the wrong answers, the logical answers. For example, if they say, well, I'm not in my room anymore, I'm somewhere else. I said, well, wherever you are, look around and tell me what's in the corners of the room that you're in. Now, that's a logical question. Every room we have has corners. Not once in 140 cases did anyone fall for that. They all said, I'm sorry. They don't seem to be any corners in this room. It seems to be a round room." I knew it was going to be a round room, but they didn't know that. So, in other words, they went against my suggestion to give me the real answer, which was keeping with UFO research.
Wow.
I'll give you one more example what I love to
This is
give. This is a
awesome.
double trick. This is a double trick. I'll
Okay.
say, when the creature opens its mouth and talks to you, do you hear a high pitched, medium pitched, or low pitched voice? Okay. First of all, they'll say, well, I'm sorry, it doesn't seem to open his mouth at all. I don't see any mouth open, which is true, but I said the mouth opened. No, they said it doesn't, which is accurate. And then, what type of voice do they hear? They go, well, I don't really hear a voice. It's like I'm hearing their thoughts in my head. They never use the word telepathy, but I've heard so many descriptions of hearing their thoughts in my head. I'm hearing what they're thinking. They're thinking in my mind. No one would just say telepathy or anything like that. So no one fell for that double trick. And in fact, some people would get frustrated with me. I don't know. You're not listening. It's not like that. It was like this. So I tried to suggest all the wrong answers, and they went against that and gave me reality, which matched all the other cases perfectly.
Wow.
That's mind blowing.
Oh, it was fun.
And one of the people that is a mutual friend of ours is Lala Bright, which she had interviewed you.
Hmm.
And one of the things we talked about, Lala and I recently, was how they, um, the ones that are abducting people. I mean, well, we talked about several things. Some of the things that I find very interesting now is like we are thinking of them now as these wonderful, possibly good, beings, but I mean, look, you're just talking about how they mutilated a calf and they might mutilate this little girl or girl. I mean, there's dangerous beings out there. What is your experience with the differences with now that you with all the research?
Well, first of all, we mutilate cattle too, called slaughterhouses,
I
and
know. True.
no human was deliberately mutilated in any of my research. I've heard of some cases in South America where that may have happened, but it's very, very rare. And it doesn't mean that a particular alien race uh, did that all the time. I don't know. But my take is this. I I compare it to if you send 100 people to a movie theater and they all see like Rambo 3 or something like that, you know, when they come out of the theater, are they all going to have the same exact reaction? Now, they all saw the same film, they all had the same experience, they all were in the theater and saw it all at the same time. But when they come out of the theater, are they all going to have the same reaction? Some say, that was a great movie, I loved it. Another person says, I was bored, I fell asleep. Another person will say, I hated it, it's stupid. And wait a minute, they all went through the same thing. So how come they don't have the same opinion? Well, I've seen with alien abductions that I'm watching there and I can almost predict exactly what's going to happen next. In fact, my assistant and I would look at each other and kind of smile like, we know what's coming. And it would be so predictable so many times what would happen and in what order it would happen and what we would hear and see, through their eyes. And yet they might come out of the session saying, oh my gosh, I feel spiritually evolved. That was so cool. And someone else will say, I don't know if I'll ever get over this. I'm so traumatized. I just hurt. And someone else will say, I'm confused. I don't understand any of this. And yet, in my mind, they all went through the same exact thing. So when you hear people say, oh, it's evil, or oh, it's this, or oh, it's that, you have to remember that is their take, given their personality, given their background, given their experience, given their mindset. It doesn't mean that all aliens are evil. It doesn't mean that they're all this or that. In fact, my experience is they usually say, hold still, we won't hurt you. You're going home soon. Don't worry. You'll be okay. And you won't remember this. Almost like a nurse telling a little kid you're about to get a shot in the doctor's office. I mean, it's basically like that most of the time. Very what I call scientific, studying different things, and especially genetic research. It's amazing how many times I've had 4 generations. And we all, Bud Hopkins, me, Linda Howe, David Jacobs, John Mack, um, so many of us looked hard at how do they pick someone to be abducted? And I always laugh because David Jacobs, I think, said it the best. He said, there's one, get him. I said, oh, that's how they select them, huh? Well, we looked at blood type, we looked at ancestry, we looked at all sorts of genetic things, and we couldn't find any similar reasons why a particular person would be selected. But we did see, almost predictably, that once they picked a person, they followed that genetic line through generations. I had at least several cases with 4 generations of contact. Um, Grandma had experiences, mom had experiences, daughter had experiences. In fact, the one we were talking about, Judy and Cindy Doherty, Judy's mom had some experiences, and Cindy's own daughter had experiences that I found out later. So there's 4 generations right there. Um,
Wow.
so there is a genetic, and that's called a longitudinal study in science. You study a certain genetic line over generations. So I think they're pretty clever.
Wow. And so you've been writing, well, tell everybody the different books that you have, because you have a lot of different books and you've got some new books that's coming out. Talk about that, because they have to do with this subject, a lot of different subjects.
Yeah. Well, I'll just finish up real quick on this
Okay.
one I'm putting together, because there's other things in there. I did a lot of research on contact through the centuries, and oh my gosh, I've got it going back to prehistoric times. In fact, I was just reviewing today. There was a case in India in 300 BC where a bright, shiny disc with a dome glowing like gold abducted a young Indian maiden and took her away as it rose into the air and sped away with a humming sound. That is in an ancient Sanskrit writing. That's the kind of thing we don't hear about. We don't know. But I did a lot of that research 30 some years ago, and I'm bringing it back and putting out some of that stuff again. Uh, it's important.
It is
Another
important.
thing, there's 2 other cases in particular. Well, shoot, I got to tell you all this. There's one where this guy is working at a factory, and he goes out the back gate to like smoke a cigarette or something, and the security cameras are catching everything. All of a sudden, this bright beam of light hits him, and it looks like the Travis Walton photo where he's caught in a beam of light, and then it goes off. When it goes off, all the power in the factory goes off too for a couple minutes. And when the power comes back on, there's no light, there's no guy, and for 2 hours, that guy is missing. All of a sudden, 2 hours later, the security film shows the power going out in the factory again. Now all of a sudden there's what I call a puddle of light on the ground, kind of like a laser pointer would leave a light on the ground. And there's nothing in that light, but seconds later, all of a sudden there's a man crouching on the ground that's appeared in that light beam. And he's back. And then he throws up on camera. Yeah, he vomits on the ground, stumbles to his feet, and walks off. The story is he never claimed anything, but he quit his job and refused to ever come back there to work again. So we have what's very suspicious as an alien abduction caught on security camera film, and yet no one claiming anything, but yet his reaction, the timing, the electrical interference at the factory, the light beams, we had that analyzed through MUFON. It was another cover story. And we had that analyzed by top, photography people and scientists. And they even could predict how the object was like 40 feet off the ground and so much distance away. And they could say the light was not any typical light by how fast it came on and went off. I mean, they did all this testing to show that there was nothing phony about this security footage. So very interesting stuff. Another quick one I want to tell you about is right here in Missouri. I had this man call me up and say, "You've got to see this film footage." I said, my brother and his family filmed it, but they don't want any publicity. They don't want anyone to know anything about this, but you've got to see this. This is important. So he brought me a copy to my house, and I sat down on the VHS and looked at it, and I about fell out of my chair. Because they're watching TV wrestling, Roddy Piper on TV wrestling back in the early '90s, and they how people would turn a video camera on and then they forget what they're filming and it shoots off into the air, just any old direction because they're watching TV while it's still running. Well, the guy had the video camera on his shoulder, shooting toward other family members sitting on a couch with a big picture window behind them. And when the action on TV gets exciting, then they're all looking at the TV and not looking at where the camera's pointing. All of a sudden, you see in the window this strange-looking face float up into the window, peer in, and then float back down.
Oh,
And later, they looked at the footage and they go, "What is that?" And they went outside. They had Rottweilers patrolling the yard. It's 20 degrees outside. There's a pile of tin cans under that window. There's nothing could have climbed up on there and not be seen by the dogs or be out in the middle of nowhere in 20-degree weather at night. And they had a strange light land in their field a couple days before. And it was right in a UFO wave that we were having in the area. So again, we had this analyzed, blown up, digitalized, everything by top MUFON experts. And they said, this is genuine footage. And they said, this is a weird face. And this is certainly not faked. And here's the kicker. I love this. I was being interviewed by a television crew and they said, "Oh, by the way, the family moved." I go, "Why did they move?" He goes, "Because two men in a black Cadillac showed up at their rural house and told them in black suits, they told them not to talk about this with anyone anymore." Well, they never did. I was the one who was talking about it. But they went to the family and scared them to the point that they left. Now, I ask you, if this was a hoax, would Men in Black show up in the middle of rural America and tell this family to not talk about it if it's a hoax?
no.
Right. So I'm saying that was the icing on the cake right there. I thought it was real. And then the Men in Black apparently knew it was real. So I love it. So this is the kind of stuff that's going in my book.
I'm just like, wow.
One other thing real quick. Well, every chapter is different, and this is really cool. Leonard Stringfield, who was a famous researcher for years with MUFON, and why he was famous is he was one of the military pilots that saw Foo Fighters in World War II, and he then began collecting UFO materials for the Air Force. Great. Well, once he left the Air Force, he wanted to keep collecting stuff. Well, then they denied he ever did that, of course. But a lot of the military people trusted him, liked him, and kept coming to him. And between 1990 and 93, I got to know him really well. Was his roommate at several conferences. And then I got to interview him on video for a whole hour in 1993. He died the next year. So I'm really glad I got this interview. He knew so much because he had 650 plus independent military witnesses coming to him and being guaranteed their anonymity, that they could tell what they had seen or witnessed. And he has so much information about 30 UFO crashes, 30 bodies retrieved, underground exam areas. And this will become like someone went down underground to fix an air conditioning unit and they look over and there's alien bodies laying on tables, you know. And then someone else is fixing something else in that room a couple weeks later and they see the same thing. But they all come independently to him and tell him all these details of things, including autopsies and all sorts of things. So I transcribed that whole hour, and I have bits and pieces I'll quote in my book from that. It's just, I mean, I even hesitated talking about it tonight because I thought, oh, great, Men in Black are going to visit me now.
I know. I was just thinking, like, oh my goodness, we are talking about this. Oh, wow. This is like you are really letting the cat out of the bag.
Bring it on.
Right here on Explaining the Unexplainable, right, Bishop Joshua?
Well, yeah. Now, do you hear any stories, any reports of the Men in Black still
Wow.
visiting people, or is
No,
that something of the past?
I don't really hear about it now.
Whoa.
I really don't. I think it's gotten to the point with the Pentagon releasing stuff and other UFO files slowly being released. And of course, it's not all the good stuff, but you know, they're starting to admit that yeah, there's something there that they can't explain. I think that and since there have been several movies about Men in Black, I think they really can't be too. They're kind of obvious now.
I wonder
So.
what they're doing for a living now, John. Are they just integrating into government programs, or are they still bullying people that have actual experiences and encounters? You know, you
Well, I
mentioned,
think there's too many people reporting things. They can't possibly quiet everybody. It's just too much and too many things being reported. Too many phones recording videos now, and there's just so much now that they can't even keep up with it like they used to be able to.
it's hard to believe how many people have come forward and have shared their videos, have shared the pictures they've taken, have shared their experiences, and now with social media, it's everywhere. You can. It seems like every time I pick up my phone to do a reel for TikTok or Instagram or one of these other platforms, some kind of video dealing with some kind of anomaly or a phenomenon in the sky is just everywhere. And people, it's not taboo anymore. People have the freedom to talk about it. And people are starting to no longer be afraid of the pushback because now it's relatively received by billions of people
Yeah,
because now we can see it, now we can share it, now it's something we can talk about. It's not just something that I used to sit up all night and listen to Art Bell talk about or George Norrie. It's a reality, and people are seeing these things, and it's no wonder because like you said, everybody's got a phone, everybody's got a TikTok
yeah,
account, everybody's got a Facebook page, everybody has a YouTube channel, and everybody's
yeah.
starting to share all this information. So
So I think that I have quite a bit of interesting stuff that needs to go into this book.
yeah, you do.
Yeah.
And
So
all the research that you've done, all the research that you've done. I've been a student of psychology, for many years. I work in mental health field, addiction recovery, and so psychology has always fascinated me as well, and hypnotherapy. I almost actually went and got my degree or certification in hypnotherapy, and there's a chance that I may do that eventually if I get time. Time's a hard thing to come by nowadays. Um,
yeah, I want to, since you are an exorcist, correct?
yes,
I want to tell you a quick little story because some of my patients, often think maybe they're possessed or something. And so I asked an exorcist, I think is Rittinger. Uh, I think his name is Rittinger. Um,
yes.
and I talked to him when he came to our city. And I said, how can I test for it? How do I know if a patient might be possessed or not? What would you suggest? And he suggested hiding religious objects around the room, like under the seat cushions or underneath my clothes or in a drawer or something like that. He says, because the devil will know where it is. He'll feel it. But anyone else won't see it or won't think anything about it. So
Mm.
this one client came in, and his mother and his neighbor both thought he was possessed, and he sat right down on a cushion, had a blessed religious object underneath it, and other things around the room. Didn't feel a thing, didn't say a thing, and so then I revealed what I'd done, and they were so relieved, and he actually got better because then he knew he wasn't, and it was more psychological, and we went from there. But
Good.
but then I had another situation where this guy I'd been working with, a real mild-mannered, nice young man, wasn't really religious, kind of an atheist, and that's like demon food. So, uh, and he came in one day and he was really bothered, and he said, I just feel like killing myself. I feel like jumping off a overpass onto the highway and just ending my life. And I said, that's not you. Why are you saying that? He says, I don't know, but I just haven't felt right. And and then he looked at me and goes, and I don't like that crucifix under your shirt. And I went, oh crap. And so what I did? I took my crucifix, and his mother was sitting there, and she freaked out when I pulled out my crucifix because she didn't know I was wearing one. She couldn't see anything. I pulled out my crucifix that I wear because I'm Catholic now, and pulled it out. And I asked him to hold it because I wanted to see if his hand would burn or anything. I mean, I was just going to really go for it. And it didn't. He grabbed hold of it and nothing happened. But then I told him how they need to say prayers and lots of prayers and surround themselves with blessed objects and all this stuff. And next time he came in, he was all better. And he'd done all that I asked him to do. And then I asked him, I said, well, am I wearing it today? And he goes, nah. I go, yeah, I am. And I pulled it out. So he couldn't feel it anymore. He couldn't tell. But that really freaked me out. And I thought you'd appreciate that little story because it really freaked me out when he says, I don't like that crucifix under your shirt.
Wow.
Yeah, wow, that's right.
That's a great story.
Wow, I love that story. That's a good one because that really shows you had it covered up. He could tell.
Oh yeah, you can't
the demon
tell.
could tell. Well, that brings up a great question. I know we're kind of 7:40. I still want to talk about the new books
Oh sure.
too. But I know this is a new book that we're talking about, but we talk about this on the Unseen Realm with Archbishop Rondon, right? Every Saturday we talk about these kind of questions. One of them is, do you believe that aliens are demonic beings?
No.
Okay.
No, there's some naughty alien races out there like the reptilians. I always say they're like a bunch of drunk guys in a car on a Saturday night. They're just like rowdy and reckless and not so nice to a lot of the people that they encounter. But the Greys seem really organized and scientific. There's a lot of types out there, and I couldn't tell you about each one. And there's praying mantises, which often seem in charge of stuff, which is weird. But hey, I call it the way I see it. I don't see them as demonic, and I know people have tried to make aliens angels. They're not angels, and they've tried to make aliens demons, and I don't see that either. I've done the spiritual research, and that's a whole different separate thing. It's not at all alien at all. In fact, I had an abductee case where I had her ask them if she had another encounter, to ask them if they were gods or whatever. And the response she got was, oh no, there is a higher power, but we're just another race. So I thought that was an interesting answer.
It reminds me of a local minister here that lives close to me, or he lived close to us. He's dead now, but back in the early 70s, and the church he built is a very big church, and he claimed to have been abducted by aliens, taken on this craft, taken up into outer space. And when he questioned the beings on this craft, he asked them if they believed in Jesus Christ, and their answer was, yes, he's our God also, but we didn't sin like you all did. So that's why we're so advanced like we are. They took him under the Bermuda Triangle, showed him pyramids and everything under the water. And when they brought him back, he told people they thought he was crazy, so he stopped talking about it. But he, to the day that he died, he held true to his testimony of what he saw. But he said very specifically that they said they firmly believed that Jesus was their God too. So, I don't think he imagined that. I mean, I don't think he was a man that would lie. He was very well respected in the religious community around here. So, you know, and I think it was several years, many, many years later, that they actually, I guess, discovered those pyramids under the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, they have found some things, and it's interesting. I had one case where during her abduction, she was taken into the ocean and down to an underwater base. It looked like domed mounds. They weren't mounds, but they were shaped like that, and they were underwater. And this was back in 1989 that she told me this. Um, and she saw the underwater base of the aliens. And now you hear more about maybe they've got bases underwater. I'm thinking, yeah, my case saw them. So, yeah. Um, okay, you wanted to know about the book, the Angel Wing book. I don't know if you got a picture to put up or whatever.
Yeah,
There
there.
it is. Yeah, good timing. It's called The Unexpected Journey because this is a novel that I wrote. It's the only book that's not a research book. However, it's filled with research details. Um, I base the book on real miracles, but the story is that this police detective that you see on the cover there, he's a crusty old disbelieving police detective. Kind of reminds me of Danny from Blue Bloods. He don't put up with any crap, and he knows all the perps out there are just awful, and and he doesn't believe in anything weird or supernatural, and um, but he gets sidelined and to a desk job because he got injured on his job as detective, and he can't stand that. He's depressed, and so his best friend talks with him from Rome, Italy, and says, "Hey, we could use your detective skills out here." And he goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, we have a new miraculous claims investigation unit that," he goes, "Well, I don't believe in any of that crap." And he goes, "That's exactly why we want you, because you're not going to think automatically that this is a real miracle. You're going to be very meticulous and careful and doubting and all that. And we think you'd be a great member of our team. And that way you could use your detective skills without having to worry about running or protecting your fellow man." And he goes, okay, I think I would like that, because he hated the desk job. So the rest of the book talks about him going out, and they take him to places where there's reported miracles and different things going on, Marian apparitions and bleeding Jesus statues and all sorts of things of the religious nature. And every one that I quote in the book is actually a real case. So, but you get to feel the real case from his eyes, his doubting mind, his way of trying to explain each one away. And to make a long story short, he keeps failing to explain these things, and he gets a bit overwhelmed. And I can't give away the best part of the book, but he has several things happen that completely turn his world upside down in a personal way. And he knows that the information is real, and no one could have known what he was shown or given. And so the unexpected journey is his unexpected journey from not believing into realizing, oh my gosh, there is really a heaven and a hell and all of that in this life, and God and everything. So it's a nice way of, I call it an educational novel, because at back of the book I have 30 pages which goes and has pictures that show you the actual miracles and the actual places where things have happened, and the details of it that are right in the book as well. So it's like you're pulled into this realm like he is, maybe doubting and not sure of things, but by the end of the book, you're pretty overwhelmed with the facts that have come out, which end up being real facts. So that's the unexpected journey that you might take if you read it.
Wonderful.
That's amazing. I had my mic turned off. That's amazing.
Oh, it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
I love
Um,
that idea because it really you are part of the truth. You're finding the truth, just looking at it like through, like you said before. Everybody has their own perspective or
right.
opinions. So in a way, that's the same thing. We're becoming the one with going to have our own opinion on the truth.
Yeah.
Wow.
And in my near death research, it was so amazing because so many of the best cases are atheists who didn't believe anything to start with. And there's Eben Alexander who wrote. He's a like a scientific uh, neurologist, professor. He didn't believe. He said science would explain everything, and then he had amazing experiences, and he now says it's more real than anything you can imagine. He said I felt more real when I was dead than when I'm alive, and in my book, I'll have quotes right next to each other. Like I was saying, I will, have thousands of cases that I'll quote from, and all these witnesses from around the world. And I take you from the minute you start to leave your body to as far into other realms as you can possibly travel, whether it's heaven, hell, or what I say, the other place, which we might call purgatory or limbo or whatever you want to call this in between place. And it's just amazing how, when I collected all that information over from 54 different resources, and one resource might have 100 cases in it, I just studied so much and got as much as I could. And I collected it over and put it in files on a computer over a year's time. And then when I started assembling it all, I was blown away. I was blown away because I had no idea how matching the details were going to be from all over, especially when you have a believer, their quote, next to an atheist and next to a person who's been blind since birth, and they all saw the same thing. And you're thinking, wait a minute, blind since birth, they never saw anything. Right. But in their spiritual eyes, they saw the same thing the atheist and the other people saw. And so all those quotes are right next to each other. So as you go through, you just are literally drawn into this whole other realm through other people's experiences and quotes. And I'll give you an example. When they saw the gates of heaven, one person says, "Oh, it looks like a giant pearl." And then someone else says, "Oh, it looks like on that wall someone melted pearls and threw them at it." And then someone else says, "It looks like they liquefied pearls and poured it on that wall." And someone else says, "It looks like a bunch of jewels, kind of like pearls." And when you see all those quotes together, you're thinking, okay, they're all describing the same thing in their own way. But it's very powerful to do it that way. And I love because that gives you a more sense of reality when you have so many people saying the same thing in their own way. Because otherwise, it would go 1,000 different directions, and we'd have all sorts of fantasies and different stories being told.
Which book is that one?
The intense reality of eternity. And I
Wow.
say that because it's an intense reality because it could be incredibly joyful and unbelievably blissful and wonderful. Or if you go another direction, it can be incredibly terrifying.
What
And
about the incredibly terrifying parts? Did they match?
oh yeah, that's just it. Even that matched extremely well. Um, the darkness is feels like it's alive, and you just there's no light, and it's all barren, and you're isolated, and there's these creatures down there that are just terrifying. And I really won't go into it because your listeners might not sleep tonight, but all I can say is that, again, the details match there. And a lot of times they were shown that as this is where you would have gone if you weren't going back. And so you might want to think about changing your world, your life. So they're giving glimpses of that, of where they would have gone. Because all these people, you have to remember, returned, to tell their stories. Um, so, I have one other spirit story I want to tell real quick. Um, you'll appreciate this. girl was so close to her mother. They were just like best buddies. And then her mother died, and she was in her 20s. And she felt her mother's presence. She smelled her perfume. She felt her sit on the bed next to her. She felt the bed go down and felt her right next to her. And then she even got a visual glimpse of her spirit. And she was so excited. Now, her mother and father had divorced, and dad lives in his own house just watching TV and wants to be left alone. So she goes over there and she's all excited. She goes, Dad, you'll never believe it. I saw Mom. I felt her. I smelled her perfume. And he goes, oh, you just want to feel those things. She's not really there. You're just imagining all this stuff. And he says, just let me watch TV. All of a sudden his TV goes off. And he, what? So he gets up, checks the remote, checks the batteries, checks the cords, checks everything. There's nothing wrong. And she looks at him and she goes, I bet Mom didn't like you saying that to me. I bet she turned it off. He goes, there you go again. Everything's about Mom. And she goes, okay, Mom, if you did that, turn the TV back on. Boom, TV came right back on. And he went, oh, and he had to leave his own house for about 3 hours because he was so freaked out. Yeah, I love those stories. And those are my patients. They're telling me their experiences. It's awesome.
Wow.
It is.
You know, I with my mom, I've seen her or experienced her since she's passed away, and at least 10 times. And
Great.
just, yeah, oh yeah. And I think one of the times it was like right on my birthday, I woke up and my mom had said something. It was like it was my last birthday. And so I don't know. I just think that they just find ways to be able to, share,
Yep.
let them know that we're here. This has
Yep.
been absolutely fascinating.
Absolutely.
I told you I had too much to share.
I know we didn't even get it. There's so much more. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to book you for next month. I mean, I'm serious. This is so incredible.
No problem.
Joshua, what is there one question that you had on your mind that we could get him to answer before? Because we haven't even really got to go into some questions hardly.
Well, I mean, he's barely scratched the surface tonight. I wanted to get into abduction and contact phenomena. Um, I just one quick question because I'm a psychology buff as well. You've studied abduction cases extensively. What psychological markers distinguish genuine experiences from fabricated or influenced accounts?
Well, first of all, they all seem to have post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay.
The interesting thing is they don't know what the trauma was. They have the symptoms, the reactions, the nightmares, the triggers. They have all that, but they don't know what the trauma was because they don't remember it. And that's classic in that's their reaction. They experience something extraordinary, and they're having all these reactions to it. In fact, a lot of them had phobias, but very interesting phobias, like a phobia of falling up. When the guy would walk outside, you have to hang on to a fence and then leap to his car door and hang on to that and keep looking up. And he didn't know why he did that. Well, because when he was abducted, he felt his feet leave the ground and it freaked him out. And I had several people with that phobia of falling up. But how would you develop that if you weren't taken? And then this Cindy Doherty that I mentioned, that she and her mother were abducted and saw the calf mutilated. She had a phobia of dolls, the old creepy looking dolls, from like the 40s and 50s. And she never knew why. In fact, she wouldn't even let her daughter have dolls because she was so freaked out by them. Well, on one of my later sessions with her, she saw a room full of hybrids and she goes, oh my God, those are my dolls. And she realized that the hybrid children are strange looking, reminded her of the doll that she had at that time. And she could never have another doll again. But see, she didn't know that for years and years and years, that was why she couldn't stand dolls. Well, after that, she actually let her daughter have dolls and she got over it. But for all those years, she didn't know why she had that reaction. So phobias, PTSD, post-traumatic stress, those are common. I didn't have anyone who was schizophrenic, no one that was psychotic or delusional. I mean, I tried so hard to test them out, but these people were having real experiences and real feelings that they didn't understand, and they wanted help, and that's what I did.
Thank you for being you. I really, this is beyond what I was understanding about you. I'm just amazed.
Well,
There's so much, there's so much about
Yeah.
you to cover. It's like you're looking at, it's like the author, and then then I look at it through a perspective of an author, just the way I kind of categorize things. But you really truly have helped people in an amazing way. Thank you. That's amazing.
well, like I said, in my profession, I get all the good stories because everyone thinks they're crazy. So they come to me and tell me what's going on. I go, "Oh no, that's not crazy."
Wow.
That's happened a lot. We have no other people that have had that experience too, and they go, "Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you talk about the supernatural. No other therapist will do that." And I go, "Well, I will, because it's out there, and we need to talk about it."
Yeah, and then plus you're so accredited. All the people you're talking about, they've called you in the past. They've asked you to be. That is really, yeah. You're almost like the best kept secret.
Well, that's kind of how I liked it. I wasn't out to be famous or anything, even though my name is. But um,
What that is interesting.
yeah,
I would
but
rather have this John Carpenter on than the other John Carpenter. Nothing, because I love John Carpenter's movie They Lived in 1988. With Roddy Piper. Great movie, great movie. I would interview that other John Carpenter, but when I realized who it was that was coming on tonight, I thought, "Holy cow, we actually get to talk to the John Carpenter."
well,
So it's amazing to get to meet you on this
oh, I
platform.
appreciate that.
And next
Well,
time
like
I'm
I
going to
said,
have thousands of questions.
I felt like I was sitting on a lot of good stuff, and I thought, I need to do something with that because whenever I die, it all goes with me, and it's like, no, people need to know about some of the stuff that I've heard and learned and all that, and so that's another book.
Yeah, we just last night or yesterday on the Sears with Lala. She's on the Sears now, but we talked
Mhm.
about that exact same thing. It's like it feels like this is the time we are
Mhm.
supposed. We don't know. We need to start talking. I would love to have Lala come on too with them. I wanted to have him and Lala come on together, but it's just with all the stuff going on. But I think that would be fun to have him on and then
Oh yeah,
have him on with Lala.
Well,
Just that would be
yes.
fun.
She and I are good friends, and we've had some good talks, so that would be fun.
It would be. All
Well,
right.
I
Well,
appreciate you guys very
oh,
we
much, and
appreciate you too.
I never know how much I know until I start talking, and I realize, oh wow, I think I knew a lot of stuff.
oh yeah, yeah. We've like barely touched I broke the iceberg here,
Yeah.
and this is like I feel like we've gotten we've got, just feel this is amazing.
It
Well,
is amazing.
I'll come back anytime. I got plenty more, so
Oh,
anytime,
good. Yay.
anytime.
Thank
So
you.
make sure you go ahead and book him, Mercedes. Go ahead and book him.
Yeah, we're gonna get you immediately back on, and the time
problem.
difference isn't so bad, right? You're like in the central time, so it's not too bad for you.
That's 10 o'clock here now.
Yes.
Did you
That's
say
not.
you're in Missouri?
Yeah.
We're about
Springfield,
Okay.
Missouri.
Yeah, I've preached out in Independence. I've been all over Missouri. I've been to Springfield. I've been St. Louis, Kansas City, and I'll tell you something real quick before we go. I was preaching in Independence, and the Rolling Stones was playing over in Kansas City, and I asked my wife. I said, "Can we cancel service tonight to go hear the Stones play?" It's awful.
And what did she say? What did she say?
No.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, so we had church. It was great. So I love that part of the country. Beautiful, beautiful place.
That's great. That's great.
Oh, this has been so awesome. Thank you so much, John, for being
No
with
problem.
us.
I'm glad to share.
Thank you. And everyone, please look up John S. Carpenter, or how Bishop Joshua puts in MUFON, that'll get you out of the UFO. And that's what I did too. You put in the UFO and pull, or just whatever these subjects are. But look him up, buy the books. He's got so many books. I'm going to buy that book or whatever book I'm just going to buy all your books. They all sound so good.
Well, each one will give you an amazing experience because
They sound awesome, actually.
I love every
really.
one of them because they do something special for each person, and it's you'll see.
That's awesome. I'm so excited. All right. Well, Joshua, do you want to close the program in a special way or any other way? Or
Sure. Excuse me. So as we close, I want to leave you with this. Do not fear the unexplained. Seek to understand it. Don't dismiss the testimonies of those who have seen what you have not. Listen with discernment, with compassion, and with humility to admit that the universe is wider than your experience. And above all, remember that no matter what mysteries we uncover, no matter what phenomena we investigate, no matter what encounters we analyze, there's a God who reigns above all realms, all dimensions, all intelligences, a God who's not threatened by the unknown because he authored it. John, thank you for your courage, your discipline, your commitment to truth. To our listeners, stay curious, stay discerning, stay grounded in the one who holds all things together. Until next time, this is Explaining the Unexplainable. May God keep you, guide you, and grant you wisdom as you navigate both the seen and the unseen.
Amen.
Amen.